a slammed door, unanswered texts, and a teenager who feels more like a stranger. This is often the hidden cost of strict parenting. Many parents believe control creates success, but excessive rules and punishment can quietly push teens away. Instead of building respect, extreme strictness often breeds fear, secrecy, and rebellion. When teens feel unheard and over-controlled, they don't grow closer, they withdraw. Understanding why strict parenting backfires is the first step toward rebuilding trust, connection, and influence during the most critical years of a child's life. Strict parenting often relies on fear as a tool to maintain order and discipline. But fear is a fragile foundation for any relationship, especially between parents and teenagers. When teens grow up in an environment where punishment is harsh, reactions are unpredictable, or mistakes are met with anger instead of guidance, they learn an important lesson: early honesty is dangerous. Instead of feeling safe enough to open up, they become cautious, calculating what to say and what to hide. Over time, this fear reshapes the relationship, turning what should be a place of comfort into a place of stress and self-protection. As fear increases, trust quietly disappears. Teens stop sharing their struggles, emotions, and failures because they expect judgment rather than understanding. Even small issues feel risky to talk about, and larger problems become secrets. Parents may believe their strictness is keeping their child on the right path. But in reality, they are being kept out of their teen's inner world. Trust cannot grow where fear dominates, and without trust, parents lose the ability to truly guide their child through complex emotional and social challenges. This lack of trust often leads to emotional isolation. A teen who cannot speak freely at home will seek connection elsewhere, whether through friends, social media, or even strangers who seem more accepting. These outside influences may not always have the teen's best interests in mind, but they feel safer than parents who react with control. The home, which should be a refuge, slowly becomes a place to avoid or endure rather than rely on emotionally. In the long run, fear-based parenting backfires. While strict rules may create obedience on the surface, they prevent teens from developing honesty, confidence, and decision-making skills. Teens who are afraid of their parents don't stop making mistakes. They simply hide them better. When difficult situations arise, parents are often the last to know, not because the teen doesn't care, but because they don't trust that vulnerability will be met with support. Ultimately, when fear replaces trust, parents lose their strongest influence. Teens listen to those they feel safe with, not those they fear. A relationship built on trust allows room for mistakes, growth, and open dialogue. But when strictness crosses into fear, it pushes teens away emotionally, leaving parents with control but no connection. And connection is what truly keeps teens close. When parents try to control every aspect of a teenager's life, communication slowly begins to break down. Strict rules that leave no space for discussion send a clear message: obedience matters more than understanding. Teens in such environments learn that speaking up won't change anything, so they stop trying. Their thoughts, opinions, and emotions remain unheard, and conversations turn one-sided. Parents talk, teens listen in silence. Over time, this dynamic creates emotional distance that words alone cannot bridge. As control increases, genuine conversation disappears. Teens may still respond to questions, but their answers become short, guarded, and superficial. They share only what is necessary to avoid conflict, not what they truly feel. Important discussions about friendships, stress, identity, or fears never happen because the teen assumes their perspective will be dismissed. Parents may believe they know best, yet they make decisions without understanding the reality their child is facing. further widening the emotional gap. This lack of open communication also prevents teens from developing critical thinking and decision-making skills. When every choice is made for them, teens don't learn how to express opinions, negotiate, or reflect on consequences. Instead, they internalize frustration and resentment. Feeling powerless, they may emotionally shut down, appearing distant or uninterested, when in truth they feel ignored and misunderstood. Control replaces curiosity, and with it, opportunities for meaningful connection vanish. Eventually, the relationship becomes transactional rather than emotional. Communication revolves around rules, chores, grades, and expectations, while deeper conversations are avoided. Teens stop turning to parents for advice because dialogue feels unsafe or pointless. When challenges arise, peer pressure, anxiety, failure, parents are no longer the first source of support. The silence created by control becomes self-reinforcing. In the end, excessive control doesn't strengthen authority, it weakens influence. Communication thrives where teens feel respected and heard. Without that, parents may enforce rules, but they lose engagement, honesty, and emotional presence. A teen who doesn't feel allowed to speak will eventually stop listening altogether, leaving parents with obedience on the surface, but disconnection underneath. When teenagers grow up under constant strictness and rigid control, rebellion often becomes less of a choice and more of a reaction. Adolescence is a stage where individuals naturally seek independence and a sense of identity. When parents deny this need by enforcing excessive rules without flexibility, teens begin to feel trapped. The pressure to conform, without question, builds internal frustration, and rebellion becomes a way to release that pressure and reclaim a sense of control over their own lives. This rebellion doesn't always appear loudly at first. It may begin quietly through lying, secrecy, or small acts of defiance. Teens learn to break rules in hidden ways rather than openly communicate. As control tightens, the urge to push back grows stronger. Strict parenting unintentionally teaches teens that rules are meant to be avoided rather than understood. Instead of learning self-discipline, they learn how to evade authority, which can follow them into adulthood. Over time, rebellion can escalate into risky behaviors. When freedom is denied in healthy ways, teens may seek it in unhealthy ones. This can include keeping dangerous secrets, falling into harmful peer groups, or engaging in behaviors simply because they are forbidden. The rebellion is not always about the action itself. It is about asserting independence and proving they are capable of making their own choices. Even if those choices are poor, parents often interpret rebellion as disrespect or bad character, but it is often a response to feeling controlled and unheard. Teens who are never allowed to make choices don't learn responsibility gradually. Instead, they experience freedom all at once, without guidance, once parental control weakens. This sudden release can lead to poor decisions and long-term consequences that could have been avoided through balanced freedom. Ultimately, extreme strictness creates the very behavior parents fear. By denying autonomy, parents push teens toward defiance instead of responsibility. Healthy boundaries combined with trust allow teens to practice independence safely. Without that balance, rebellion becomes inevitable, and parents lose the opportunity to guide their teens' behavior before the risks become real and serious. Strict parenting often focuses heavily on correcting behavior while overlooking a teenager's emotional world. Rules, discipline, and expectations take center stage, leaving little space for empathy, reassurance, or emotional connection. Teens are constantly told what they do wrong, but rarely heard when they express how they feel. Over time, this imbalance sends a powerful message. Emotions are less important than obedience. As a result, Teens begin to suppress their feelings rather than share them. When emotional needs such as understanding, encouragement, and validation are ignored, teens start to feel invisible. They may appear calm or compliant on the outside, but internally they struggle with self-doubt and confusion. Constant criticism without emotional support can make teens feel like they are never good enough. Instead of building confidence, strict parenting often creates shame, anxiety, and fear of failure. Teens begin to define their self-worth based on approval rather than self-acceptance. This emotional neglect doesn't mean parents don't care. It often means they don't realize how deeply emotional connection matters. Teens still need affection, comfort, and empathy, even if they don't always ask for it directly. When these needs go unmet, teens may distance themselves emotionally, believing their parents don't truly understand them. This emotional withdrawal can look like attitude, laziness, or indifference, but it is often a form of self-protection. As the emotional gap grows, teens may seek validation outside the home. Friends, online communities, or romantic relationships become sources of acceptance. While some of these connections may be positive, others can expose teens to unhealthy influences. The need to feel valued can outweigh caution, leading teens to compromise boundaries just to feel seen and appreciated. In the long term, unmet emotional needs damage the parent-teen relationship. Teens remember how they were made to feel more than the rules they were given. Without emotional support, discipline loses its purpose. A strong connection, built on empathy and understanding, is what makes guidance effective. When strictness replaces emotional care, teens don't just feel controlled, they feel alone. As teenagers grow, the parent-child relationship naturally shifts from one of control to one of guidance. Strict parents, however, often struggle to make this transition. When the relationship has been built mainly on rules, punishments, and authority, there is little emotional foundation left to support meaningful guidance. Teens may still follow rules under pressure, but they no longer seek advice or value parental input. The relationship lacks the trust and closeness needed for influence to last. Teens are most receptive to guidance from adults they feel emotionally connected to. When that connection is weak, advice sounds like criticism and concern feels like control. Even well-intentioned warnings are dismissed because they come from a place that feels judgmental. Parents may wonder why their teen no longer listens, not realizing that years of strictness have taught the teen to tune out instead of engage. When the relationship breaks down, teens begin making major decisions alone. Choices about friendships, values, relationships, and even risky behaviors are made without parental insight. This independence may look like confidence, but it often lacks wisdom. Teens still need guidance during these years, but they will only accept it from someone they feel understands and respects them. Strict parenting often creates obedience in early years, but disconnection in later ones. Once teens gain more freedom, through age, school, or adulthood, parental control weakens, and with it, any remaining influence. A teen who never felt emotionally supported stops caring about approval and relies solely on their own judgment or peer influence. In the end, guidance is rooted in relationship, not authority. Parents who focus only on control may win arguments, but lose their child's trust. When the bond is broken, advice no longer carries weight. True influence comes from connection, empathy, and mutual respect. Without these, strict parents are left unheard when their guidance matters most. In the end, strict parents do not lose their teens because they care too much, but because care is expressed through control instead of connection. Parenting driven by fear, rigid rules, and constant authority often masks itself as discipline, yet it slowly erodes the very relationship that gives parenting its power. Teenagers are not rejecting guidance, they are resisting environments where they feel unheard, unloved, or misunderstood. When rules outweigh relationships, obedience may exist for a while, but trust quietly disappears, and without trust, influence cannot survive. Teenage years are not just about correcting behavior, they are about shaping identity, values, and emotional resilience. Teens are learning who they are, what they believe, and how to navigate the world. During this time, they need parents who can listen without immediately judging, guide without controlling, and correct without humiliating. Strict parenting often skips this emotional work, focusing on results rather than growth. But growth requires safety. The safety to fail, to ask questions, to express doubts, and to be imperfect without fear of rejection. When teens feel emotionally safe, they stay connected. They may argue, push boundaries, and make mistakes, but they still come back for guidance. When they don't feel safe, they withdraw. They stop sharing, stop caring about approval, and start living separate emotional lives. By the time parents realize something is wrong, the distance feels overwhelming, not because it happened suddenly, but because it was built slowly through years of fear-based interactions. Losing a teen rarely looks dramatic at first. It begins with silence, short replies, locked doors, and a sense that you don't really know your child anymore. Strict parents often respond by tightening control, believing more rules will fix the problem. Ironically, this accelerates the loss. Teens don't reconnect through force. They reconnect through understanding. Control can manage behavior, but it cannot heal emotional disconnection. The truth is, teens don't need perfect parents. They need present ones. They need adults who are willing to self-reflect, apologize when wrong, and grow alongside them. Parenting is not about winning power struggles. It's about building a relationship strong enough to withstand disagreement. When parents shift from, "because I said so," to, "help me understand," something powerful changes. Respect grows in both directions. It's also important to understand that letting go of strictness does not mean letting go of boundaries. Healthy parenting still involves structure, expectations, and consequences. But these are paired with empathy, flexibility, and open dialogue. Boundaries guide, control suffocates. Teens who are gradually trusted with responsibility learn accountability. Teens who are constantly controlled learn either dependence or rebellion. Perhaps the hardest realization for strict parents is that authority fades, but relationships endure. Childhood allows control, adulthood does not. The parents who remain close to their grown children are rarely the ones who controlled them the most, but the ones who made them feel safe, respected, and loved. Teens remember how their parents made them feel long after they forget the rules. Rebuilding a connection is possible, even if strictness has already caused distance. It starts with listening more than speaking, validating feelings even when you disagree, and choosing curiosity over control. Healing doesn't happen overnight, but every moment of genuine understanding pulls a teen closer. Ultimately, parenting is not about shaping a perfect child. It's about nurturing a relationship strong enough to last a lifetime. Strictness may create order, but connection creates influence. Parents who choose empathy over fear and guidance over control don't lose their teens. They grow with them.